So Osho used to say, and mark my words carefully, Osho said that the biggest challenge is mind which is oscillating between past and the future, very little moment for present. So he said that when you are laughing, you are not thinking. When you are dancing, you are not thinking. When you are in love, you are not thinking. And when you are not thinking, there are chances that, like a nectar, you will have glimpses of super consciousness, supreme consciousness, or that higher power. So even those glimpses will be good enough to carry forward till the larger meeting that you have with supreme consciousness. So follow your work of passion when you lose the count of time, laugh a lot, dance a lot. Love is open for interpretation, so I wouldn't say do a lot of that, but love everyone, starting with you, love yourself. Yeah. So that's where the moment of micro realization may happen.
Welcome everybody to our webinar today. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on wherever you're joining us from. So before we get into our discussion for the day, but before that also, as you're joining us, please tell us where you're joining us from. Also tell us what your expectations are from this webinar, what you're expecting to learn, or what are your questions. And during the course of the webinar, please do feel free to leave your thoughts and your comments or your questions on the chat box, and we will be, Ujjaval and Ram would be happy to take those up. So before we get into our discussion for today, I would just like to quickly announce a bunch of exciting programs we have lined up. First up is our Coaching Foundation program starting on 16th March with Revan Days, who will be the facilitator for this particular program. Next, we have an Advanced plus ACTC program, which will prepare you for both the ICF Level 2 and the ACTC, or the Team Coaching Credential. This is happening on 21st March, and the facilitators for this program would be Cindy Muthukarpan and Smita Raghu. After that, we have an ACTC program with Ujjaval, who is also a panelist in this webinar today. The program starts on 22nd March. Next up, we have Ram's Coaching for Spiritual Leadership program starting on 25th of March. I will shortly be posting all the links on the chat box. Lastly, I would just like to announce that we are also launching some short programs in April and May. Now, this is with the purpose of supporting coaches whose credentials are due for renewal and for learning purposes. We will also give resource development certificate, or RDs, for these courses. So please do reach out to us if this sparks your interest. I will again be shortly posting all the links on the chat box. And with that, I will hand over the reins of the webinar to Ujjaval and Ram.
Thank you, Yamini. And hi, everyone. Welcome to this session where we have wisdom coming across from Ram to all of us. And I will also talk about how Zen Koans can be a transformative tool. And we have a packed time ahead. But before we begin, I thought, because it is connected to spirituality, it is connected to awareness, and whatever I have learned in the realm of spirituality and self-awareness, most of it, the credit goes to Ram, who is my teacher, my mentor. So Ram, is that okay for me to ask you this question, that for all of our benefit, if you could explain, what is spirituality according to you, and what is spiritual leadership that you would like to share with us about?
Yeah, thanks, Ujjaval. Yeah. Let me actually connect that with what we are planning to discuss later today, or let's start with that as well. In the strictest sense of the word, I think spirituality itself, the word spiritual itself, is a koan of sorts. What a koan in the Zen tradition actually means is something which does not have a direct, logical, cognitive, straightforward answer, and which engages the mind in some way that actually stops the mind. The whole purpose of the Koan is to stop the mind or confuse the mind, so that if there is confusion, eventually there is some clarity that emerges from whatever the confusion has been created. So if you look at it from that perspective, 90% of the people that I talk to in any capacity whatsoever, and I'm sure that you talk to and every time we engage in a conversation, the word spirituality is invariably interpreted as religion. In fact, if anything, as I keep writing and keep talking, spirituality is just the very opposite of religion. To me, religion is something which is artificial, which is about control and manipulation. The more organized a religion is, the more is it about power and wealth and whatever is it. Recently, I wrote a blog saying if you really look at people who are genuinely spiritual, I would consider as monks. Amongst them, people like, I know only about the Indian spiritual people, not so much about others in the rest of the world. But people like Ramakrishna, Ramana, the Brahmacharya of Kanchi, and so on, they were like famine refugees. Skin and bones, bones sticking out. And today, every guy who calls himself spiritual has got a fat belly. He has got enough stored out there to last a month of fasting, and no famine will affect such people. And what right do they have to talk about spirituality? And they are making money out of saying that they are spiritual. So one of the things that I really would like to come back to what you asked is in this particular 4 sessions on spirituality, which are about 1.5 hours each, and it's pretty short. And therefore, there isn't going to be much room for tremendous amount of theorizing and so on. I would like to present spirituality as something that takes you deep within to understand yourself better. To go back to the Vedic truth that we are energy beings who are encased in matter, and which today, after several thousand years of the Vedic wisdom, has been irrevocably established by Einstein that matter is energy and energy is matter. And this was known 5,000 odd years ago in the Vedic wisdom, again and again in the Upanishad, that's what came out. But we still have doubts about it. We all can say, yeah, we understand that. I mean, there are, like I keep saying, there are supposedly only about 4 people, maybe half a dozen people in the world who really understand science and theory of relativity. Everybody claims that they know. The only reason that they say that they know is because literally millions of applications have been formed out of that quantum science equation, and it's irrefutable. And therefore, it is foolish to refute something which is irrefutable. Whereas on the other hand, if I talk about energy, and I say, look, there are these energy centers within your body. There are many Tom, Dicks, and Harrys who would come and ask me, oh, can you prove that? My question is, can you prove the theory of relativity? Nobody has proved it yet. It's still a theory. And yet, you would not dare ask a question to anyone because you would look like a real moron if you were to say, oh, prove the theory of relativity. So one of the things that you can understand spirituality is by going within yourself and examining yourself, in a sense, self-reflecting, discovering yourself, self-coaching yourself, and be able to see for yourself, there's a part of you that's really energy. And if I'm able to achieve it in those 4 sessions through the kind of some of the meditations, reflections, and some of the assignments that we are going to let people have, and this will be supported by hopefully at least about a dozen Kocharya trained mentors who I would have separate conversations with and who would meet people in between the sessions to gather their questions and so on. So it's going to be also for us a tremendous amount of learning experience in terms of what is it that really people think about spirituality as, and how deep can we take them into that spirituality. So this is where, so from here I can lead into a Koan, but before that, any questions you have or anything else that comes up on the chat. Yeah, I think it's mostly what Yamini has posted. So do you have anything, or we can start into the discussion on what Koans are about in terms of, at least we can confuse a lot of people, even if we cannot bring any clarity to people during this session.
Yeah. So I was jokingly telling someone today who was struggling to apply for PCC on the ICF website. So I mentioned that, sometimes in ICFC may stand for confusion. So don't worry, it will be resolved. Technical glitch will be resolved soon. So yeah, that's what we can see. C for coaching, C for confusion as well. And yes, okay. Yeah, Ram, absolutely a great point that you have made. And I wanted to kind of link it with the subject that we have on offer today. So my little understanding that, spirituality is what we were born with. We were not born with religion, we were born with spirituality. And it required us to connect with supreme consciousness. And but only thing which is coming in between, probably, as you mentioned, Ramana and other spiritual masters, they are saying that our mind is perhaps only a deterrent. It is coming in the way, it's like a curtain between us and supreme consciousness. So things like Zen koans is they are there to disrupt the mind, because mind continuously dwells between present and future and the past, and never in the moment of stillness. So Zen traditions have thought that if mind becomes still, and in Ram's presence, we need to be careful not to use word mindfulness, because it is grossly not connected with this. It is mindlessness. So if your mind is still and it does not exist, you can connect with supreme consciousness. So being spiritual is different than religion, and being spiritual is also about believing that there is a power which is bigger than us. No, we are the manifestation of that power, and perhaps just that veil or a curtain in between needs to go away. It may take many years or many lifetimes probably, but with Zen koans, probably that those moments of self-realization may be just around the corner. So, Ram, back to you.
Okay. Now, you mentioned about the curtain. And that curtain in the Hindu tradition is known as, or the Vedic tradition, I don't like the word Hindu, and I've written about it quite a bit. Hindu is a word that was coined by people who colonized us, made us slaves. Sindhu is a term that was originally applied to the Vedic religion. The Maya, what they called, was a curtain that stood between us and the reality that we are fragments of energy, the hologramic fragments of energy. Now, within that, the Maya, the ego of the mind, the personality, what Freud called ego, what is called the Hankara in the Vedic concept, is really the vehicle which carries that particular Maya. Now, Suresh asked about Zorba the Buddha. I don't know about the Zorba the Buddha. I know Zorba, I know Buddha, but I don't know how these two got connected in a koan. But there is a koan, since he pointed out the word Buddha, which is probably one of the koans I really love best, because of the fact that it truly helps you understand, when you go deep into it, in the aspects of spirituality. The koan is, very simply, if you meet Buddha on the road, kill him. And that's what a koan is. And but Buddha, it means everybody. If you meet Jesus Christ on the road, kill him. If you meet Ramana on the road, kill him. If you meet Shiva, Krishna, Rama on the road, kill him. Probably the Hindutva guys will kill us too, but that's a different matter. So essentially, the Koan is about, if you meet Buddha on the road, kill him. Now if you go and search, there are many, many masters who have talked about this particular Koan, and we will come to a second Koan a little later, depending on the time. At one level, certainly it means that if you meet someone who proclaims himself to be a master, a guru, a teacher, someone you need to follow, perish that thought. Kill that person, kill the shadow of that person. And that makes a lot of sense because Buddha never wanted to be called a guru. He never wanted to be called a god. And he actually, when his disciples asked him to say, what should we remember you by? He did two things. One, he upturned his begging bowl and signifying that let everything go, even your desire for food, whatever it is. That's what you remember me by. And the second, he pointed to the Bodhi tree and said that should be the symbol that you should remember, not the Buddha, not the man. But unfortunately, they made Buddha a god, made him into a gold god, silver god, whatever god. And every time I go into one of these temples, especially outside of India and Thailand and other places, the golden temples, literally I can feel Buddha rotating there, probably in his burial chamber, because he cannot be at peace. He never wanted to be one. And similarly, everyone else, Jesus never called himself any kind of a master, guru, or whatever. He sacrificed himself for others. In the latter days, like you have J. Krishnamurti and so on, who actively said, don't ever call me a guru, I'm not. It's an insult to me. The word guru means that you are moving somebody from darkness to light. The moment anybody says that I have completely moved out of darkness to light, that person is never going to talk about it. That's what the Vedic wisdom says. The one who is seeing the light will never speak of the light. The ones who are speaking of the light are still in darkness, and therefore avoid them like the plague. And that's what the Koan means in a way, that if you meet Buddha on the road, and especially if the Buddha says, I'm the Buddha, kill him, or walk away from him, run away from him, cross the road, do whatever you want. Like, why did the chicken cross the road? Because it met the Buddha on the other side of the road. So it crossed the road, perhaps. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it, much more seriously, when you start peeling the layers, which is what any of you who are possibly joining my program are going to do. And that's really what the Ramana self-inquiry process is. Remove it layer by layer, and you will start understanding that the Buddha here refers to yourself. The Buddha refers to your identity. The Buddha refers to your intelligence, your cognitive intelligence. And that is what creates illusion. That's what creates the Maya. And that is what gives you the impression that you are not energy. It makes you ambitious. It makes you driven by fear and greed and multiple other kinds of things. And therefore, this ego is what needs to be killed. The ego is not what needs to be let go. So the real answer to the koan that if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. As you go through your own inner self-analysis, you will start discovering that it is this element that is probably the most important in terms of your journey, the hero's journey towards self-discovery. Now, a lot of people think that meditation is, apart from the fact everybody says, oh, I can't meditate. And so you all know it's not a cakewalk. But everybody thinks that meditation is something that is going to give me pleasure. Meditation does not give you pleasure. Please be very, very clear on that. Especially when you are a beginning meditator, you will find what comes out of you is toxicity. The worst feelings that you have had, the worst traumas you have experienced, those are the ones that get expressed when you are serious, when you're really, if you're really meditating. if you're trying to just watch your breath or watch parts of your body, these are some of the things that you will learn. What is going to come up for you is that stuff, the garbage that is being stored in you, not just in your brain and the hippocampus, but in your body, in the cells of your body. And that comes out. Believe you me, for the first 6 months when I started on serious medication, it was all about thoughts of lust, because I was very young then, about greed, about ambition, what I wanted to do, anger, and so on and so forth. It took a long time. And of course, after a while, you get to a stage where, yeah, the initial part of you gets cleared up. But then with life, as long as you are living a life, you are going to gather that kind of a garbage every day. So meditation has to be a routine practice practically every day for you to be able to cleanse yourself. So that killing the Buddha has to happen pretty much every day, very regularly, to be able to get rid of all the rubbish that you have inside you. And that is healing. And over a period of time, you come to a state where, well, somewhat in some kind of an equanimity. And even then, at the end of the day, people like all of us, I, Ujjaval, whoever, however much we know about the theory of it, as long as we are doing the kind of work that we do, at the very best, we can glimpse what is called in Vedic science, the savikalpa samadhi, which is you are in your senses, you are feeling your senses, the senses are feeding you, and still you are trying your best to stay in a state of equanimity. And that is called the savikalpa samadhi, where you are there with the movements of the mind, as Patanjali says. And the few that I mentioned, the Ramana, Ramakrishna, Paramacharya of Kanchi, and people like that, who were in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, who went beyond that, for them, the rest of the world didn't exist. It didn't matter. Two of them, Ramakrishna and Ramana, suffered from cancer. And Ramana actually said, what is this pain? The body itself is not mine. So where can this pain come from? So that was the kind of state that we are in. None of us can be. If you're little one tooth pains or one toe pains, whatever it is, we need to rush to the doctor. So we are nowhere in that state. So that whole exercise of killing the Buddha when you meet him is about extinguishing the ego within us. To be able to, like we coined this term in Pacharya, SAGE, sage, being in the state of selfless surrender, state of acceptance, A, G is in gratitude, and 4 in terms of engaging in a way that we can be of service to others. And that is what really helps you to be able to kill the Buddha within you. The last I would stop here this time is to say that, yeah, if you really want to truly understand this, you have to go through a meditation like Ramana did of death itself. And I have done it. I have taught many number of people. It's not easy, but if those who are willing to join my program, and if you really wish to do it, but it will have to be with a disclaimer. So if you really die during that session, it's up to you. So there is no guarantee. Because honestly, I have known people who have gone that deep into the death meditation that they have died. So it is also possible, because if you're ready, that is what I would say happens. But what it does is, for those most people who would be surviving, and I have met many people who have gone through what is euphemistically called the near-death experience, which is really a death experience, is that they have no fear of death after that. They've all been through a process where they have actually faced death in front of them, and they have come back, and they have no fear of death. And once you have no fear of death, you have no ego. So they have already killed the Buddha within them, not because they wanted to, probably there was an accident or whatever it is. There was a period in my life when I was in my monastic journey, I had met with about 6 people who I went into depth, and much of what they said corresponded with what medically and psychiatrically has been described as the process of near death. So these are some of the things. And this koan, for me, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him, should be the first koan that anyone who aspires towards understanding what spirituality means in terms of understanding the energy space that what is in, to be able to think through and to be actually experienced. So koan is not about the cognitive understanding, it's about the actual experiencing in your body of the response to that particular question. So I'll stop here. Ujjaval, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ram. So Zen koans are meant to be some small anecdotes, some puzzle, some riddle, not to find an answer. It's all about reflections, reflection, and your own meaning can lead you to self-realization. So that's the whole purpose. Because Zen masters wanted to hit the mind with a sword. So a Zen koan might be like cutting the oscillations of mind and focus on one moment, and that might lead to self-realization. So let me share something with you, a couple of koans which might be useful for self-reflection. And also, those of you who understand that space would also know that Zen koans, or even entire Zen tradition, ultimately it is founded on the principles of non-duality, Advaita, as Ram talks about it. So Advaita is about not I am, my mind and supreme consciousness, are they different? No, it's non-dual. But how do you reach there? So one Zen master was asked by a student that what is the Zen way? And master replied that a blind man walking with open eyes into the well, falling into a well. I will repeat, a blind man with open eyes falling into a well. Yeah. So they may not have eyesight, but they have vision, as Helen Keller used to say. One more. So there was one bhikkhuni, a woman Zen student wanted to enter into one of their temples. So she was standing outside the gate, and Zen master asked, "Why are you not entering? Why are you outside? Come inside." And that lady replied that that's my problem. I'm not able to believe that I'm outside. Yeah. So one of the readings in that is that gateless gate. In Zen tradition, they say that there are 12 gates that you need to eventually clear, but they are not gates. They are gateless gates. And there are authenticated roughly about 1700 plus koans in Japanese tradition, in also Chinese Zen tradition, and some of the Korean ones. But each one of that is aimed at creating reflection, creating that shake-up, mental shake-up, emotional shake-up, and there are no answers. As they say that each Zen koan is made to disrupt. And once it disrupts, you may go into self-reflection process, and only master would know the answer, but they will not also give you, they will let you find the answer within yourself. And each koan may have several answers. So I'll just take a pause here and look at the chat box if there are some perspectives coming in, some questions coming in. So yeah, absolutely, Winnie. Wonderful point. Appreciate that. Ram, would you like to add anything at this time, or I can add one more koan?
Please.
Okay. And this, in some story or the other form, you would have learned about it, I'm guessing, but its original Zen koan. So there were two students, two monks, were going on the roadside, and in a hilly area there was a river flowing nearby, and they found that a woman wanted to commit a suicide. So she jumped in the river, and one of the monks jumped and saved that woman, and she was brought safely to the side, and then both of them went ahead. So the other guy said that, okay, in our tradition, we are not supposed to touch the woman, and you just went ahead, you embraced her, you brought her up, or you lifted her. And so that's, I mean, I think we are not doing this right. So the other person who went ahead and saved said that I lifted that woman and I put her aside 1 hour ago, but looks like you are still carrying along with you. That is the moment the other person had a self-realization. Yeah. So like that, just wanted to ask you a question, that if any of you have any koans that you remember, or any such story that has really moved you, disrupted your thinking process, anything that you would like to share in the chat box.
Okay, when they come up with a Ujjaval, let's go into a koan both of us are familiar with. And what you said, like, for example, there are different versions of the story. One is about this young woman who's waiting there. She couldn't cross the river because it was in floods. And then the older monk picked her up and dropped her on the side. But yeah, the end is exactly the same. The younger monk asked, why did you carry her? And he said, no, I left her a long time ago. Why are you still carrying? And that's really relating to the first one of dropping the ego, because it's our conditioning which makes us believe that we want to do that. And I'll come to that in a minute in another, probably the most famous koan wall in the Zen tradition. The koan goes like this: what's the sound of one hand clapping? There are multiple answers to this. But the important thing here is to realize that there is no right or wrong answer. It's a very experiential answer in terms of what is coming up for you. Very strangely, just this morning, I was sent a link by my sister about a piece of music. Both of us are interested in this Carnatic music. There is a singer called Sikal Gurcharan, who I sort of started midway and then I had to go back. He was actually playing the score of Oppenheimer, for which Ludwig Grossner won the award, Oscar award, a couple of days ago. And many of these are picked up from very spiritual concepts. One of them is about a question that when Oppenheimer has a discussion with Niels Bohr, the quantum scientist, they are talking about something, and there's something about a sheet of music. Both of them are familiar with Western music. And I think Niels Bohr asks Oppenheimer, can you hear the music? As he reads through it. And Oppenheimer walks out saying, yes, I can hear the music. And there is a score that is played. And similarly, there is one where that famous quote from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna talks about that I have destroyed the world before and I'll destroy it again, what is called the Sambhavami Yuge Uge verse in the Bhagavad Gita. And Oppenheimer remembers this and talks about it when he watches the first nuclear explosion. And that score, again, the way that it is played. I don't want to go into details, but the way it's an imagery in sound in terms of what those concepts represent. In a sense, the sound of one hand clapping is, in one level, it is like an imagery. All of us can visualize that we can see two hands coming together, clapping, and there is a sound. Now, supposing one hand is down, the other hand is moving, physically, superficially, obviously, there is no sound. And the question from the Zen master is, what is the sound? I think, Vinita, I think you asked it, or you said it in some different ways. From the Vedic philosophy, again, I go back to that in answer to that particular koan. There was no such thing as creation by the Big Bang. The universe always existed. And the universe existed as what is called the energy of Akasha, space. Impenetrable, unknowable, infinite, constantly expanding, eternal, etc., etc. And even today, scientists believe that more than 90% of the total matter in this universe is what is called dark matter and dark energy. It's only 10% at the most, which is visible. And in the Vedic wisdom, the creation was a sound, not as in the Bible, a word. And if you think about how this originated, is because in that space where there was a movement, there was friction, and the friction produced a sound. And from that sound, which became air, the second level of energy, and then from that sound, the friction came the fire, and as the fire cooled, it became water, and the water settled, it became earth. And so the 5 levels of energy moving from space to air, to fire, to water, to earth, moved from one level to another. And these are represented by the chakra energy centers within our body. And in one way, this koan represents the one sound, the one hand clapping, is that movement from the movement of the energy space of the space, Akasha, into the movement of the sound that is created through the air. And that is why in the Vedic science, the heart center of energy is called the anahata. The meaning of the word anahata is uncreated sound, the sound that is not created. And the mantra that is used usually to describe this is called the pranava mantra, or the sound of Om. And a lot of treatises have been written on it. The Taoist physics and many other kinds of books and studies have been done, that the frequency at which, if the sound of Om is reproduced, how it seems to resemble the sound of what in space, in some, though it is believed that in space, because it's vacuum, sound doesn't travel, that's not quite true. There is a sound in the space as well. And that sound, how it resonates with this Om and so on. So the sound of silence, the sound that is produced out of silence without any actual interference, is perhaps the answer to this particular koan. So in one of the oldest stories about this particular koan, the Zen master tells a disciple, come back to me with this answer. And his disciple spends several years And he comes back each time. He says, oh, is it the sound of the gurgling water? Is it the sound of the rustling leaves? Is it the sound of this beautiful bird singing? And so on and so forth. And finally, when the master turns down all this, the disciple sits down and suddenly he has this realization and he comes back and tells the master, Master, it's a sound of silence that I feel within me when I find the energy within me. And that's the sound of one hand clapping. And the master nods. So a koan, as Ujjaval earlier said, doesn't have a definitive answer. For you, it may be something else, and that may be quite right for you. And for someone else, it may be something different. But invariably, the koan is designed to break the confusion in your mind by putting that mind into a state of indecisiveness as to what to think or what to do. And ultimately, that awareness happens. So it's a creation of awareness. And in the next session, we won't do it today. Ujjaval and I will go through what's called a dharana in yoga, which is somewhat similar to koans in a different way, but a little bit more simple to practice. And also the parallel is the self-inquiry process of Ramana, as I mentioned. So I'll stop here, Ujjaval. Yeah. And if there are any questions, like you asked people about questions from the audience as well in terms of koans.
Yes, absolutely. So any questions for Ram or myself at this moment? Otherwise, I have something interesting I want to share with you.
Now, there is one about this, very famous koan. What was your original face before your parents were born? Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So there was a young Zen student joined a monastery, and he was doing meditation all the day, not doing any other work. For a few years, he continued to meditate, and then he asked his master, I am meditating all day. So master asked, what would you like to do with that meditation? Who would you like to become? He said, I am meditating because I want to become Buddha. Will I be able to become? So instead of responding, Zen master came out and again brought back a brick with him and started polishing that brick with a brush. So he didn't answer. He just continued to polish. So that boy said, what are you doing? He said, I'm trying to polish this brick so that it becomes a mirror. So kid said, how is that possible? Even if throughout your life, if you continue to just rub it, it will not become a mirror. The Zen master didn't ask anything, just looked at him and said that, okay, so if you continue to meditate throughout your life, will you become Buddha? And that is the moment self-realization happened to that boy. So sometimes, as coaches, sometimes for our own personal transformation, we keep trying, hoping that it will lead to breakthrough. But you may have to either ask this question to your client, are you polishing a brick to be a mirror? And one of the things as a practitioner coach, I can share with you that I have used some of the Zen koans as in coaching. And it really, sometimes, not every time, but it strikes a chord with the client and they get aha moment. So Zen koans as a coaching tool, maybe some other day topic for us, but just wanted to check with you if there is anything that you would like to ask or share at this time.
Yeah, Ujjaval, there is I think Yamini has posted it, a question by Anurag Mishra. We talk about removing ego, how it appears that ego is what drives the individual to remain dissatisfied with the current state, driven towards a desired state. Isn't that when ego disappears? Would you like to answer it?
Okay. Okay, I'm just processing that question because this question looks like a Zen koan to me. So can I take a moment to read that?
Yeah, please.
And okay, when that ego disappears.
So while you're doing that, let me try and just go through that other question of I think we said about the original face. What is that? What did he say? Before you were born. Yeah, there are many versions of that Koan as well. What was your face before your parents were born, or whatever?
Yeah, correct. And also to respond to Sarika, she mentioned that absolutely, Sarika, one of our board advisors and one of the greatest living coaches, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, says that whatever appears to be simple is not easy, and whatever appears to be easy is never simple. Okay, so now I think I have some answer to, I can attempt that for Anurag, but like Zen Koan, there could be multiple answers. I'm just sharing my version of it. So, Anurag, here is perhaps a mental model that is there in your question, that ego drives progress. Okay, so ego is one of the primary drivers for progress. So there could be some, reflection on it, but also many a times ego and progress are linked, because yes, I want to achieve something and I have that achievement orientation. So I agree with you. But, when that ego disappears and the mind disappears, there is nothing to progress, because what are you gravitating towards? You are already there. So it's actually the process of unbecoming. Okay. So before your birth, you were a part of Supreme Consciousness. After birth, you were a part of Supreme Consciousness, but mind came in between. So like I was reading some other day in one of these things, that mindlessness state that Ram talks about is the place when you go, there are no questions that will remain. No urge will remain. And what happens to society is taken care by the universe. Nothing beyond us to do something, but something which is to be taken care of by the universe. So maybe a deep question and a shallow answer, but yeah, we can discuss it some other day.
Yeah, Ujjaval, let me take a shot at it slightly differently.
Yeah.
Anurag, when we speak of ego, primarily today in the modern world, it's a Freudian interpretation of what ego is. And when Freud spoke about three conditions, the ego, id, and superego, it being the primal feeling stuff, which is mostly the unconscious mind. And Freud was probably the first person who really made the unconscious conscious to the world. And then Jung came across later as a contemporary and differed with him to say that the unconscious is not always negative, it's also positive. He talked about the collective unconscious in ways which are very similar to what in the Vedic system we call it the collective consciousness. But coming back to ego, from a Freudian concept as well, the ego is a personality or the identity which is put together from the id as it emerges into consciousness. And it carried a lot of the conditioning that happened before. In the Vedic philosophy, the word for ego is ahankara. And ahankara is usually defined by whatever is I feel is mine, and it's about me, whatever that happens. So when you really talk about ego, and very often this is referred to as the self with a small s, as opposed to the self with a large S. We are restricting ourselves to ourselves, our personal ambitions, our personal fears, and personal greed. Of course, you can be like Humpty Dumpty and say that whatever I say, it can mean anything that I say, that's different. But by and large, when we talk about a definition of ego, it's about what individually we all believe that we need to be, who we are. And that is very self-centered. And it's not the same as being, like Thomas Leonard beautifully said in the Portable Coach, the first thing that he said, Thomas Leonard, for those of you who may not know, was the founder of ICF. And he has written a book called Portable Coach with about 27 principles. The starting principle is called be selfish. But as he explains and you go through it, that selfish has nothing to do with ego. The self is about the large S, which is the S that we talk about in Sage, where it is about selflessness. And in order to be able to get to that place, you really have to get rid of all your garbage, and you have to love yourself and go through something like we talk about in the process called Ho'oponopono, taking responsibility for what all happens in the world, which is why Buddha said that all desire leads to suffering. Life is suffering, and the cause of suffering is desire. And ego is the primary cause for that desire. Now, as long as the ambition takes into account progression of people other than you, along with you, into something more meaningful, as long as we fulfill the needs of other people along with our own needs, and as you get evolved more and more, self-actualized state, you put the needs of other people before yours to be able to do that, then it's no longer ego. It's absence of ego. The ego state is, yeah, if you want to be Trumpian, anyone taller than me, I have to cut them down. If somebody has got two eyes, blind them, and if everybody does to everybody else, as Gandhiji once said, everyone will be blind in this world. So that is what ego would lead to. So it all depends upon how you want to define ego. Yes, but is it so bad to be satisfied with what you have? I have come across literally dozens of people who made multiple millions even before they are 30, and they have come to me and said, we are unhappy. We have achieved all this wealth. We don't know what to do. And what is it? So I call them the confused generation, because they know that what they are not happy with, but they are not sure what they are going to be happy with. And that's what ambition does to you. Ambition without a purpose, without helping other people by itself, is the hallmark of what we call ego, with the Freudian sense is ego, and what is called ahankara. You may or may not agree with it, but if you have experienced as much of life as I have, you would find out, because I too was one of those people during my 30s and 40s, believed that everything was about, the corner office and making my millions, which I did, several corner offices and several millions, but didn't stop. Because what goes on is greed. I want more, I want more. And each step along with the greed, there is fear. I'm going to lose that. Fortunately for me, I eventually lost a lot of it. And that made me realize that that's not going to make me happy. So the whole concept of ambition and everything became very different. So I'll just stop here. Ujjwal, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ram. So just wanted to extend your response to Sarika with a story, and then perhaps in the interest of time, we can also place one Zen koan for everybody's reflection. So Sarika asked that a lot to digest and reflect on. The space is real deep, looks easy, simple, but very difficult to attain smallest aspects of spirituality. So Sarika, I'm just sharing my perspective on that and would like to bring in Osho here. Okay. There were a lot of controversies around that man, but there was no controversy around his sheer brilliance and very straight and direct communication to like a Zen koan to cut through your mind, but his way of slightly more radical. That's a different issue. So Osho used to say, and mark my words carefully, Osho said that the biggest challenge is mind, which is oscillating between past and the future, very little moment for present. So he said that when you are laughing, you are not thinking. When you are dancing, you are not thinking. When you are in love, you are not thinking. And when you are not thinking, there are chances that, like a nectar, you will have glimpses of super consciousness, supreme consciousness, or that higher power. So even those glimpses will be good enough to carry forward till the larger meeting that you have with supreme consciousness. So follow your work of passion when you lose the count of time, laugh a lot, dance a lot. Love is open for interpretation, so I wouldn't say do a lot of that, but love everyone, starting with you, love yourself. Yeah. So that's where the moment of micro realization may happen. And in continuation of that, but still, if it doesn't happen, I can share one Koan to you. Okay, and it's a parable. So one Zen master, there was a neighbor, and there was a neighboring family, and one girl from that family, somewhere she fell in love with someone, and she became pregnant before marriage. So when the family got angry, started hitting that lady and said, give me the name of your father, your child's father, who spoiled your life. And in that frustration and fear, she gave that name, that this Zen master did this to me. So parents came, gave that child to him, and Zen master started raising. But before that, he didn't say yes or no. He just asked, is that so? So when that woman said that you have raped my daughter and now this child is yours, what have you done? How have you done? He just said, is that so? And then started raising the child. And so many years left, that woman, that girl became woman, and she realized that that was a great mistake. She came back to take the child. She said, this child is mine and you are not his father. He said, is that so? Yeah. So when mother came and fell on his feet and said that, please forgive us, we are really, really absolutely ashamed of it. He said, is that so? So that state of equanimity, is that so, could be one of your guiding and closing note from our side. Yeah. So we have last few minutes left, and if there is anything from Ram or any of the participants, most welcome to share.
Yeah, I'm linking to something that you already talked about a bit, and to answer Divya's question. And answer to that is also, I mean, Osho, like what you mentioned, Osho is a guy who really developed meditations for laughter, for dancing, And he also wrote a book called Sex and Superconsciousness. And he has written another book called Man and Woman, or Men and Women, I'm not quite sure. Please read them. They are some of the best books I've ever read. Anything to do with psychology as applied to spirituality. I mean, Osho is also the person, Divya, to answer your question. Trusting the universe doesn't mean we have free will. The universe provides us free will. Osho had a story to tell. He said there was this man who kept on complaining. It's a variation of another story. Kept on complaining, says, you know, I've been telling you, help me to win a lottery. And you have done nothing. You have helped me not at all. What kind of a God are you? And this voice came up and said, you idiot, have you at least gone and bought a ticket in order for you to win the lottery? So the very least that you can do is to move you towards something that you want to achieve. Accepting what the universe does or what the universe says, if you can hear the universe, has no meaning whatsoever. The meaning is in that famous verse of the Gita in chapter 2, where Krishna says, Karmani vadikarastu ma paleshu kadachita. To do is your job. You are here by nature to act, and that you have to. But the outcome is not yours to control. That is all meant by saying that the universe will take care. The universe will take care of the outcome. You still will have to do the grunt work. Okay. And that was the difference between Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. Vivekananda was no less than Ramakrishna. But it was Ramakrishna who told Vivekananda, don't you dare to become like me. When Vivekananda told him, I would like to be in the state of samadhi like you and be in bliss. He said, that is not your job. I am here. I have nothing else to do. I can't help it. But I want you to go ahead and propagate this philosophy to the rest of the world. But for Vivekananda, the Ramakrishna mission and all the kind of work that they do, probably one of the very, very, very few genuine spiritual organizations that exist today, that is happening today. So the universe is there, smiling, grinning, conspiring, all that is true. But the universe is going to do nothing if you don't lift your hand and foot. Please remember that.
Yeah, thank you. Ram, Sanchita has asked for the name of the book once again, if you could share.
Which book? Sex and Superconsciousness. And Man and Woman, I think, if I remember right. I mean, these are books somewhere in my shelves, but they are amazing books, amazing books.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
What is
So
Titik?
thank you everyone for joining today.
Somebody asked, do you know what is Titiksha? My Sanskrit is not good enough.
No, I also don't have an idea. So
Titiksha. Okay, whatever it may be. I'll figure it out. I'll ask Dr.
Yeah, I only know Pratiksha, which is waiting, as you know, we are in the month of March in India, financial year is ending. And I'm waiting for a lot of invoices to be cleared from our clients. So I only know Pratiksha.
No, Pratiksha has two meanings, Ujjaval. Pratiksha also means to become explicit.
Yes.
And Pratiksha also means to wait. Sanskrit always has multiple meanings to the same.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
But anyway, we will figure out what Titiksha is. So time is up. Thank you very much. Thanks wonderfully, Ujjaval. We have one more session next week. We will cover the dharanas, the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra.
Yes, absolutely, Ram. Sure. Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.